everybody, and welcome to this extraordinary meeting of Burnley Borough Council on the 30th of September 2020. In attendance are His Worshipful the Mayor of Burnley, Councillor Wajid Khan. Also in attendance are Deputy Mayor Councillor Mark Townsend and Councillor Anwar, Baker, Birtwistle, Briggs, Brindle, Campbell, Cant, Chowdhury, Comis, Emo, Ferrier, Fewings, Foster, Gill, Graham, Hall, Harbour, Hosker, Councillor Shah Hussain, Councillor Ishtiaq, Councillor Johnson, Kelly, Councillor Arif Khan, Councillor Lubna Khan, Councillor Shabana Khan, Gordon Lishman, Margaret Lishman, Councillor Lone, Councillor Martin, McCann, Mahana, Mottershead, Newhouse, Haight, Councillor Emma Payne and Councillor Mark Payne, Councillor Asif Raja, Councillor Anne Royal, Councillor Sumner, Councillor Tatchell and Councillor Townley. Officers in attendance are Mick Cartledge, Council's Chief Executive, Lukman Patel, Council's Chief Operating Officer, Catherine Warby, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, Chris Gay, Governance Manager, hosting the meeting, Imelda Grady, Democracy Officer, Christine Wood, Democracy Officer, Alison McEwen, Democracy Officer, co-streaming the meeting with Mark Heidman, and also Georgia Robinson, Support Officer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chris. Welcome to members, welcome to officers, and welcome to everybody tuned in from home. Item 1 on the agenda. Hold 1 minute silence for former colleague and councillor Tom Porter. Members, please join me in a time of silence of 1 minute to remember our former colleague and dedicated councillor Tom Porter. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, everybody at home. Before I ask any members to come in here, I just want to say personally, I had great respect and I always had positive conversations with Councillor Tom Porter. We may be of political persuasions, colleagues in here, but I always remember him being a courteous and an honourable person. My thoughts and wishes go out to Tom's family in these difficult times. Any member?
Councillor Hosker.
Councillor Hosker, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pay a special tribute to Tom Porter. When I got elected in 2015, you're one of a few councillors who took me on board, regardless of party colours, and offered to show me around. I was a bit timid and shy at the time. I didn't know the ropes, and Tom was decent enough to say, look, don't be bothered when you go in chambers and what have you. Showed me around, showed me my sheet, told me what to expect. I had the greatest admiration for the bloke. We became not only councillor colleagues, but we became personal friends, him and his wife Debbie. And really, he'd be sadly missed by me, and it was a privilege to know the bloke. And deepest sympathy for his family, and may he rest in peace. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hosker, for them comments. Can I bring in Councillor Townley before I bring in Birtwistle? Councillor Birtwistle. Councillor Townley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to pay tribute to Tom. He was one of the straightest, funniest, easy to deal with people I've ever come across. A great supporter, a great man who worked for his, not only his ward, but the people of Burnley. and who always had a straight down the line view, whether he supported what you were particularly asking him or not. And I would like to also give my wishes to his family at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townley. Can I bring Councillor Burwison, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom was not only a councillor of this borough, he was a personal friend of mine. And when we persuaded him to stand, he promised he would do his best and work hard for the people of Whittlefield and Ightenhill. Tom fulfilled his promise 100%. He was totally committed councillor for that area. He worked hard with the residents, he worked hard with the community groups in that area, and he was a credit to this council as a councillor. It was a sad day when Tom discovered he had dreadful cancer, and it was an even worse day when he died. So I have always been totally committed to Tom. He was a great friend, a great colleague, and my best wishes to his family have been given many times over. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burwison, for them very deep words. Can I bring Councillor Graham in, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom and I didn't always see eye to eye. We had many clashes in the council chamber, particularly about the market. But outside the council chamber doors, he and I got on absolutely fine. He was a gentleman and a truly nice man. I had great respect for him, and I hope he rests in peace now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. And can I finally bring in Councillor Mark Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't know Tom as much as many other councillors who are on here tonight, but I had great respect for his hard work as a councillor and the passion he brought to the role. Just like Councillor Graham, we clashed a number of times inside and outside the council chamber, but it was always respectful. And we always parted company talking, which is as it should be, and many of us could learn that lesson. But what I really recall is a putting tournament, probably about 30 years ago now, that we had on a mutual friend's lawn. The jokes, the laughter we had that day stay in the memory. So in many respects, he has certainly left his mark, and my condolences go to Debbie and the family. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. We now move on to item 2 on the agenda, as nobody else was indicated to speak. So item 2 on the agenda is minutes of the previous meeting of the council. I will move those minutes. Mr. Deputy Mayor, will you second those minutes?
I so second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If there's no dissent, I will take these minutes as approved. The meeting host, Chris, will unmute all the microphones. Please remain silent unless you wish to dissent.
Oh, whoa.
I don't.
Mr. Mayor, your microphone just needs unmuted.
I didn't think Chris would, the host would mute me as well, but all is fair in democracy.
Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, it's all or nothing. Yeah, I was just about to unmute you.
Thank you. Anyway, so basically there was no dissent there. The minutes are approved. Let's move on to item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay, it's plenty of time, so nobody's come back on that, so we move forward to item 4 on the agenda, which is public question time. Are there any questions? Mick?
None have been received, Chair.
Okay, thank you. None have been received. Moving on now swiftly to item number 5 on the agenda, items for decision by the council. Can I point out to members that items for decision by the council are treated as motions. Once a proposal has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum of 5 minutes. Members may then only speak on any amendment. Item 5A, election of the leader of the council and appointment by the leader of the deputy leader and the executive members. Members will have noted the clarification note circulated today, which sets out that the term of election as leader of the council is governed by the length of term that the successful nominee has remaining of their term as a councillor. Therefore, the amended recommendation at 5A1 is to elect the leader of the council for the term of office set out in Article 7.03 of the Constitution. Please, can I have nominations for leader of the council? All nominations will be needed to be moved and seconded. Any nominations?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I nominate Mark Townsend.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for?
Mr. Mayor, I will second that.
You want to second that? So, are there any other nominations? If you want, okay. I gather there are no other nominations. Just give you a few seconds. Okay. So, as there's only one nomination, Councillor Townsend has been nominated as leader of the council. Would members please vote for, against, or abstain in the forthcoming electronic poll, which will appear on your screens shortly. On completion of the results, they'll be shared to enable members to confirm their vote. So, the poll is now open. If anyone's having problems, let us know.
Having problems, Mr. Mayor, it hasn't come up on my screen.
Councillor Birtwistle, and Chris, that vote isn't. There's a problem there. So can you please follow the protocol?
Yeah, what we'll do, Chair, once we close the vote, any members who have any problems will take the vote verbally and then just amend what's displayed on screen. What will be displayed on screen is for those members that have voted, but we'll make that manual adjustment.
Is it possible to put it up on screen again rather than going through that?
Mr. Mayor, it is possible to do that, but where this has occurred at previous council meetings, what we've done is close the poll once everyone has voted. Those that haven't been able to vote, we have then manually recorded their vote. So from that point of view, that's the precedence that we have set. Is there anyone else who has been unable to vote?
We're going to follow precedence, Councillor Birtwistle. You want to go ahead?
My vote now?
Yeah.
4.
4. Okay.
Sorry, can we just? I've just received an email from. Sorry, Chair, to interrupt. I've just received an email from Councillor Roper. He's trying to get into the meeting, but he can't get into the meeting.
Right then. So, what is the protocol for that situation?
It's ridiculous.
So, well, I think that the legislation says that we have to permit councillors to attend a meeting, and we have to facilitate that as much as possible. Chris, can we potentially do this slightly differently and potentially try and call his mobile and see if he can get in, because it seems not to be able to get in the meeting?
Yeah, what we'd normally do is just sort of pause the meeting while we try and bring someone in with technical difficulties. I'll try and get hold of him, see what the issue is, and hopefully we can get him in actually into the meeting online. Yeah. So if that's okay, Mr. Mayor, if you just bear with me for a few moments, we'll get a call through.
Okay, we'll just wait for a few moments, colleagues.
Go offline.
The problem.
I thought he was in the meeting earlier, in fact.
I believe he was.
So we have a mover and seconder nomination for Councillor Townsend. So apart from Councillor Townsend, are there any other nominations for leader? Okay, that's no more nominations other than Councillor Townsend. Is there, I'll give you a few seconds in case there's any technical problems. Are there any other nominations? Okay, let's move progress. We've only got one nomination, Councillor Mark Townsend. Can we now move towards a vote? And can we please open the poll now?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just have to close. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Just have to close the original poll, and I'll reopen a new one. Just bear with me.
So basically, that's going to be closed. We'll get to vote again. It's going to be for, against, or abstain the nomination of Councillor Townsend for the leader of the council.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, the poll should be available for everyone now. Has everyone had an opportunity to vote?
Speak now if you're having problems. We're all good now to share the results. Chris, when you're ready.
So, Chair, yes, I'll close the poll now.
We've got a message. We've just got a message on the screen. Can we just check that message? Councillor Roper was trying to get in. That's not. Surely that's not. Chris.
There is a message there, Mr. Mayor. Yes, from Councillor Roper. I nominated myself, and Jeff Sumner seconded me.
I don't recall that. I don't recognise that as something that's happened.
Neither do I, Mr. Mayor.
So
is that Councillor Sumner?
Yeah, Councillor Sumner just confirmed he's not seconded it, and I definitely didn't hear Councillor Sumner second anybody. So we just have to just ignore that comment, I think.
Bear with me, Mr. Mayor, while I bring up the polling results. So there are the polling results, members. I'll scroll slowly down the page. If anyone has any issues with the vote that they cast in terms of being correctly or incorrectly cast, can you please notify us as I just scroll down? And I ask, are all members happy with the vote that they've cast as it's been recorded there on?
Can I have a look at the numbers on the top again?
If I can.
All right, the percentages, that's what threw me. It's all right.
The other issue through you, Mr. Mayor, is the vote. The polling will record all those people in the meeting, and obviously officers don't have a vote, so the percentages.
Yes. So the no answer is people that are, some of them are officers who've not obviously.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is clear. The results are there. I declare Councillor Mark Townsend to have been elected as leader of the council. Okay, before any member comes in, I'll give you that opportunity later. I will now invite Councillor Townsend, the new leader, to announce the deputy leader and the council's executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, can I thank council for putting their faith and confidence in me to lead this council. I think residents will be pleased and maybe even relieved that we've been able to make a decision tonight, because I think it would have been unforgivable if we hadn't made a decision, which has sometimes happened in the past and is a danger when you have a hung council like ours. I think it hopefully, and I'm sure it will, brings an unsettling and destabilising few weeks to an end, and hopefully that brings closure to a difficult period, especially during an horrendous pandemic that is focusing most people's attention. These are very challenging times. We have a health emergency, a jobs crisis. We're at the top of a league that we definitely don't want to be top of when you look at the infection rates for COVID-19. And we face a very difficult autumn and winter in front of us. So what I want to do now is turn a page. What's happened is in the past, and we now need to look forward, not back, outwards, not inwards. I recognise the position. The numbers of the council haven't changed. The Labour group that I lead do not have a majority on this council. We have 22 councillors out of the 45. So there will need to be consensus, and there will need to be goodwill going forward. And I'm certainly willing to play my part in that, and I'm sure colleagues on the council are as well. So just before naming my executive, I just want to lay out some priorities in terms of going forward. First of all, we need to meet the local demands of the health emergency. That's number one on the list. And as you can see with the numbers over the last few days, we need to do everything we can as a council, working with partners to ensure we get on top of this virus. We need to support local workers and businesses through the jobs crisis. This has already started, but there's no doubt that there's more to come, and we need to be ready as a council to react in a positive way to that. We need to make progress on infrastructure projects so that we have projects in the pipeline ready to go to bring jobs, skills, young apprentices into the future jobs of the future. And what we need to do as well is fix the black hole in the council's finances. Through no fault of its own, this council has financial pressures as a result of the pandemic, and we need to work hard to ensure that we fill that black hole. And we need to restore the confidence of partners and investors that Burnley is a great place to come to ensure that we're creating jobs, building homes of the future. But more than anything, I think in these early weeks, we need to restore residents' confidence in this council after a turbulent few weeks. Let's get stability, let's bring some decisive leadership, and let's have a clear direction at the town hall so that people look at this town hall and they know that there's a clear strategy going forward. So coming to the executive and the team that I'm going to have certainly helping me to run this council going forward. My plan is that I'm going to increase the executive from 5 members to 6. I'm going to do that at nil cost, so it will be at the same cost as the current executive. So joining me on the executive, deputy leader and a new portfolio, health and well-being, will be Councillor Pate. Executive member for housing with Councillor Harbour. Executive member for community services and environmental services, Councillor Anwar. Councillor Asif will be the executive member for, Councillor Raja will be the executive member for economy and growth. And finally, for resources and performance management portfolio, Councillor Graham. So that's the executive. I really look forward to working with the new team on the executive to move Burnley forward. But as much as that, I look forward to working with all councillors as we go through these next few months, which will be extremely difficult, to ensure we get consensus and we can move forward as a team and as one council. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. I ask members to note the appointments of the deputy leader and the executive members as stipulated by Councillor Townsend. Any member?
Mr. Mayor, we do have a request to speak, but can I just perhaps point out to you, Chair, that the position of deputy may be in terms of councillor position, that be just clarified.
Yeah, we will discuss the position of deputy mayor in the obviously Councillor Townsend becoming leader, that becomes vacant, but we will discuss that in item the next item. Okay.
Councillor Khan, and I think what Chris is trying to allude to is that when Councillor Mark Townsend put his name forward to be leader, he has provided a conditional resignation. So if he was appointed as leader, he would resign from his position as deputy mayor, and a casual vacancy for deputy mayor would arise. So that's what Chris wants to clarify for all members at the meeting.
Okay, noted. So Councillor Townsend is no longer the deputy mayor now. So we'll have to have a new deputy mayor, which we'll come into later on in the meeting. We have got a right to speak from who, Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. From Councillor Gordon Lishman. Sorry, Gordon Bates-Whistle first of all, and then Gordon Lishman.
And we've got Councillor just comments. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Bates-Whistle, you want to go ahead first?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And could I start by congratulating Councillor Townsend on becoming the leader of the council, and I'm very pleased to hear that he's willing to involve other members of the council in dragging this town through the dreadful pandemic that is causing so much stress and unemployment and distress to the people of this town. Could I briefly go back to the executive, the former executive that's no longer existing, and could I thank the leader of the council, Charlie Briggs? Could I thank my colleagues, Cosima Townley and Ivor Emore, and my very close colleague, Councillor Margaret Lishman, for the dedicated work and the time they put in to this, running this council. When we started some 16 months ago, the council, we expected to last for 1 month. The executive lasted for 16 months. And in the early days, it was reasonably easy and straightforward because the council just ran as normal. But after January and February, the pandemic hit this council, and we have worked hard, all of us worked hard to deliver the council through this pandemic, the administration of the council, and kept it afloat. And I think a lot of residents in the borough are pleased that we did that. Everything was fine up to 8 weeks ago, when the leader of the Conservatives threw a hand grenade into the setup that we had, demanding the removal of 2 of the Conservative members of the executive. We all sat around and thought about it, and we accepted he had the right to do this. But in the middle of a pandemic, it was creating thousands of job losses in Burnley. We didn't feel that it was the right time to disturb an executive that was working closely together, and all the executive members were experienced in the job that we're doing. Unfortunately, the leader of the Conservative Party insisted that they went, and unfortunately they resigned and left the council. That left the council with Councillor Briggs, the leader, who has always insisted that we work with the mantra of Burnley residents first, and we stuck to that all the way through. Far more important than politics, the people were, and we stuck with that mantra all the way through. We then discovered that we couldn't carry on, and it was with regret, deep regret, that I got a phone call off Councillor Briggs when I was up a ladder at the back of my house repointing to say that he had regrettably had to resign from the council. It was a sad day for me, a sad day for the people on the executive who worked hundreds of hours to deliver services of this council through this pandemic. And I'm really sad that that happened. And I again wish to reiterate my thanks to my colleagues on that executive that have worked so hard over the 16 months. They have nothing at all to be ashamed of. They have delivered what they could for the people of this town in a dreadful time, and it was brought to the end by the actions of one particular individual. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Birtwistle. Can I bring in Councillor Gordon Lishman, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's appropriate in one sense that I come in after the other Gordon, because I wanted to make a point on my own behalf, but also on behalf of Kathleen Birtwistle, which is that I suspect nobody to a greater extent than she and I know just how much work has gone into the leadership of the council over the last 16 months, and particularly during this year. I've lived with that dedication.
Let me stop you 1 second. I do apologise. Hold the thought. Can I ask other colleagues to please put yourself on mute so we can get a clear channel of communication from Councillor Gordon Lishman? Thank you. Please go ahead, Councillor Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just saying that Kathleen and I think, have seen a great deal of hard work, and particularly over the last few months, a great deal of unnecessary stress. I want to add also, though, to Gordon Birtwistle's comments, welcoming the new leader's view, his recognition that the will be opposition parties who together represent a majority in the council, who will be scrutinising and auditing the work that has taken place. And I hope we can do that in the constructive spirit which Councillor Townsend has mentioned. I want to stress particularly strongly, I think, because of what I've seen from Gordon and Maggie and from senior officers in the council, just how big a crisis we are facing. I'm old enough to remember something of the last really big crisis, which was 1960, when we saw the end of the cotton industry. Burnley survived that time better than many other local towns because of our base in engineering and the way in which the council had the capacity to find and build new industry. We need to do that again because, like in 1960, what we are now facing is significant structural change overall in the UK economy. This is not just a matter of waiting a short time until particularly aerospace and automotive engineering return to the level that they were at before. Particularly with aerospace, the changes that are taking place are fundamental and long-term, and that has a major effect on the economic basis of this town. There are going to be massive changes as well throughout the country in the way in which town centres are organised, the way in which people use town centres, and of course massive changes in the way in which people work that go with that. Even as we come out of the pandemic in due course, we will be facing major challenges as a community for those people in our midst who've lived through challenge, bereavement, job loss, and the disorientation and mental illness that can go with all of those things. For that reason, we need a very substantial community strategy in place, as well as an economic strategy, which can help our town through that period. I want to make sure that we do that by emphasising the things that are most important, and we do it by following the sort of strategy, there'll no doubt be changes in detail, which the former administration has been putting in place, and which were due to be discussed and decided over the course of meetings last week and this week. I'm sorry we're not doing that as quickly, but I hope we will be able to operate on that basis in future. And finally, I would add, and I think I speak again for Kathleen Birtwistle, a certain amount of relief that the sheer pressure and the responsibility that Gordon and Maggie and others have taken on will be lessened, at least for some of us. And from that point of view, at least, Councillor Townsend and his colleagues have my sympathy as well as my good wishes.
See how long that lasts.
Thank you, Councillor Lishman, for that. Can I now ask Councillor Tom Commis to come in, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to offer Councillor Townsend my congratulations on regaining the leadership of the council. And my congratulations also to the new executive. As a Conservative, I abstained on the vote. I felt that was the right thing to do. But I will, of course, offer constructive opposition, as will other members of the Conservative group, and I'm sure other opposition parties. Other members have mentioned the very great tasks that the new executive faces, but I also wanted to briefly give a few thoughts on the outgoing administration. With any coalition, I think the biggest challenge and the biggest achievement for a coalition is being created in the first place. It was a massive task just cobbling that coalition together. At the time that it was put together, I was with UKIP, of course. We were not members of the coalition. We were sort of supporting it on a confidence and supply basis. It would have been termed if it was in Parliament. I think we should give credit to the outgoing leader, Councillor Briggs. The fact that this coalition lasted as long as it did and that it worked as well as it did is a testament to his ability, and he's behaved throughout his time as leader with great dignity and really in circumstances that he couldn't possibly have imagined, and there couldn't be worse circumstances to come into it in many ways. And he was dealing with obviously no real majority, dependent on independents and the Green Party to get things done. And I think we should all give thanks to him. I did maintain a hope, which was obviously not realised, that he might reconsider and stand again for leadership, and he would have had my full backing had he done that. I would have hoped that he would have had the backing of the other existing coalition members, but obviously that wasn't to be. It is a matter of record that the Liberal Democrats were the ones who basically ended the coalition. They are perfectly within their rights to do so, and they're within their rights to object to changes that the current Conservative leader might have wanted to make. But it is a matter of fact that they ended the coalition, and that's just where we are. It's a matter of regret, but no one knows better than Gordon Birtwistle, Councillor Birtwistle, who back in 2010 was a member of Parliament for this town and was involved in the formation of a coalition government for the whole country. And as that was formed, it was the Liberal Democrats that nominated their members of the cabinet at that time. He'll probably remember when the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, David Laws, had to resign and was replaced with Danny Alexander. That was a replacement that was entirely within the gift of the Liberal Democrats. It wasn't something that David Cameron was able to decide arbitrarily. And I think it's a great shame that the coalition has ended. But I welcome Councillor Townsend's openness and his willingness to work with the opposition. And I think looking forwards, it behoves us all to offer constructive criticism where it's needed, but more importantly, support when the new administration is trying to grapple with the very great challenges with which it is faced. So I do offer them my support, although obviously as a Conservative, I will be opposing them, I'm sure, at times. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, Councillor Cummins. Can I bring in Councillor Shah Hussain, please? Councillor Shah Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And firstly, I want to congratulate Mark and his team for coming forth. And
you mean Councillor Townsend, Councillor Shaw?
Yeah, sorry, and for Councillor Tam, yeah, and rest of the team for coming forward and rescuing Burnley from what we've seen, petty infighting amongst the coalition. We've just heard both Councillor Birtwistle and Councillor Thomas explain as to reason why the coalition sort of stopped, and the mess was created. Regardless, I think what people of Burnley need to know is that the Labour Party has come within this difficult time and put together an administration. We've heard the words of support from both the Liberal Democrats and Tom Thomas in terms of Councillor Thomas in terms of the Conservative Party, and I hope they act upon the good faith that they've shown here today. There are many challenges, and I think the immediate challenge that we face is the COVID one, and I hope we're able to work together to overcome this. It's interesting to note that our Member of Parliament has not made any kind of contribution or comments with regards to what is happening in Burnley locally. And I hope this chamber puts him into account as to why that isn't the case. Why isn't there more support for areas such as Burnley, which is where cases of COVID are on the increase? Only weeks ago, we've heard him to say how important it was to take Burnley out of the restrictions. But since that relaxation has happened, there's been an increase in it. So we can see from evidence that if you have restrictions, you're most likely to be able to control that. So it's interesting to see the fact that the town's MP has not contributed to anything as such. And I hope Conservative colleagues who have better communication with the MP are able to talk and communicate with him. And I think with regards to going forward, and as Councillor Townsend had said, Labour is a minority administration, and we will be looking to work together and to come together and work with regards to the benefit of the people of Burnley. In particular, we need to look at how we as a council are able to close the funding gap that we have. I think something like 2.5 million or something in terms of the budget. So even though Labour has gone into administration, there are tough decisions for this council to make. And I hope those tough decisions are made together and not putting in any blame on any on the administration that comes forward, because they will be making hard choices. And I hope everybody across the chamber contributes and makes those hard choices together. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hussain. Now, can I bring in Councillor Briggs, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very sharp on what I want to say. I just want to say thank you very much indeed for the executive which I had for the last 16 months. They worked tremendously well for me, and I appreciate everything what they did. I also want to say thank you very much indeed for all the officers and all the time they put into to working with us, especially Mick and Luckman. They did a fantastic job, and I much appreciated it. It's hurt me so much as this to actually resign as leader of the council. All I wanted to do was to work for Burnley. End of. That's in my heart, and everybody knows that. And I wish Councillor Townsend all the best for the future, and I hope he's able to bring us all together. And if I can help him in any way, shape or form, please take it on board. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Briggs, for that contribution. Can I now bring in Councillor David Roper, please, if your mic's working?
Yeah, I mean, the Labour councillor who spoke, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name, was he, prior to Charlie Briggs?
Councillor Hussain.
Yeah, Councillor, I mean, that's misinformed. We've had 40,000 people die in this country already. That was when there were a lot of people with COVID-19. We've only started testing more recently. So that's why there's a lot more people got COVID-19. We didn't know how many people had COVID-19 4 or 5 months ago. So the people who are dying now, there's about 19 a day in the country. There were 900 a day going back 4 months. So the COVID-19, we're coming towards winter, which they say it might increase again, but it's a lot less pandemic than it was 4 months ago. So we don't need to be bothering as much about COVID-19, and Anthony Higginbottom is obviously correct in what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He's been informed by medical officers. He knows a lot more than Councillor is saying.
Okay, you finished, Councillor Roper. Thank you for that. Can I bring in Councillor Margaret Lishman, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I have to start by disagreeing with Councillor Roper. I think we have an unenviable position at the moment as top of the chart per 100,000, and I don't think any of us should take that lightly, whether we be young or we be old. It is everywhere within our community, and we as a council need to take appropriate action and to set appropriate examples as well. I've no intention of doing any party posturing, and we've all seen some of you do it this evening. I think, as Councillor Townsend has said, we face a very challenging time. And in my opinion, it's vital that we do all work more collaboratively than we have done in the past. I note the comments about the petty squabbling that we're supposed to have had. And I think those of you who have some real idea about what has gone on will know that that is not an appropriate comment to make to this council about the actions that have been taken by some of us in response.
You're on mute. Sorry, Councillor Ishmael, can you unmute yourself?
Can I start again then?
Yes, you can. You have my permission to start.
Chair, Councillor Ishmael is muted again.
So what's happening now, Chris? Why is this being muted? Why is everybody being muted? Chris?
Yeah.
Who's muting everybody?
Can you unmute yourself, Councillor Ishmael? Can you hear me?
I've unmuted myself, yes.
Yeah.
So where did I get muted?
Not so far into your response.
Please feel free to start again, Councillor Ishmael.
You're very kind, Mr. Mayor. I started by saying that I didn't think we could take the COVID figures lightly, and I note many of you are nodding in agreement. I think the fact that we are number one in this awful list means that we as a council must set an example, not only by what the council does, but what we do as individual council members and our behaviour. And I think that's extremely important. It's not my intention to try and do party posturing this evening, but as Councillor Townsend has said, we face very challenging times. And I think it's vital at this time that we do work more collaboratively than we have done in the future, have done in the past. What we've seen in the past is petty changes, squabbling, lots of motions, wonderful though they were, that took up time that we needed to be concentrating on other things. And I think we're right, we have a minority administration, and I hope that that minority doesn't forget that it is in a minority. We all have an equal view about how things should be done, and as I've already offered to Councillor Townsend, I am happy to do some collaborative work around the economic strategy and the community strategy that have been put together with much hard work by our officers under my remit. So I hope we will move forward more constructively, and that we will set an example by less petty fogging within this council than we have seen in the past. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ishmael, and I have Councillor Ferrier.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, my congratulations to Councillor Townsend and all the executive he's just appointed this evening. Obviously, they're faced with quite a substantial task with COVID, because it looks like even nationally facing the second wave, which seems to be a natural progression, not just with us, but amongst a lot of our European partners. So back when we both, Mr. Roper, Councillor Roper said, in that yes, COVID is still very much a very present danger, and unfortunately, Burnley is indeed on the #1 list for the infection rate, and that is not a list we want to be on top of. So there's a great deal of work ahead of the new administration to try and guard Burnley through such a treacherous time. Secondly, I'd like to give my thank you to Councillor Briggs, who showed quite substantial leadership during such a difficult time with such a interesting mix of a coalition. We had quite a mix of different opinions and ideas. I think he did a grand job, and he'll be very much missed as a leader. But I think he did a very good job there. But lastly, though, I would like to very politely rebuff Councillor Sain said about our MP, Anthony Higginbotham. If you see on Anthony's Facebook pages, and if you watch the RTV local news this evening, you'll see he does in fact quite often speak about Burnley and Padiham. And Padiham has been often forgotten in years past. And even tonight, that he mentioned about the more localised measures within Burnley to try and quash the infection rate. So I would like to stress the fact that our MP Higginbotham is certainly doing his bit in putting forward Burnley's name to Parliament and to the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I hope all them appointments are noted. So we now can move on to the next item.
Mayor.
Sorry, who's that?
Come through to try and speak, but I obviously haven't come through proper, so I do need to have a word.
So what's that? So Councillor Hoskey, you want to come in, did you say?
Please.
Okay, yeah, come in, Councillor Hoskey. I didn't see you on the chat, but
it's okay.
Fine, no problem. Come in. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, as on behalf of Conservative, my group, congratulations to Councillor Townsend and his group for taking their positions. It's sadness, but the coalition did collapse, and I'm disappointed that sometimes the finger's been pointed at my group. My group made a decision, and that group was stood by. Some of the executives didn't like that group at that decision. That's just so be it. But what I will say is this: we are in a bad position in Burnley. We all accept that, and so is all the country. So we'll do whatever we have to do to work with the Labour Party who's in control now. I just wish them all the best. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Hoskey. Now, okay, we now have heard everybody and we have noted them appointments. So we can now go on to item 5B, which is constitutional updates and appointments to committees. So at this point, I would like to move to adjourn the meeting whilst we get our head around the next procedure. And that means that all members, you stay where you are. It's a 5-minute adjournment, and I would ask and request that we pause the online coverage on YouTube. So Chris, can you come in and do
yes, Chair.
I know that I'm just waiting for Councillor Chris to know he's get on standby. So I move the adjournment of the meeting. Can I have a 10 minutes?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that's fine. Oh, thank you very much. That's moved and seconded. Do we?
Over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, and apologies for the slight delay there whilst we were just sorting out some very important constitutional business. Item 5B, constitutional updates and appointments to committees. Members, a list of nominations to the vacancies that have risen as a result of the appointment of the new leader of the council and executive have been circulated and discussed now with members, has been displayed on screens. So we would like you to hopefully vote by assent any support of this, accepting these recommendations and approve the changes in scrutiny, the committee formation, in the sense that Councillor Townsend and Councillor Pate now will be removed from their positions and they'll be replaced by Councillor Martin and Councillor Campbell, as well as the changes in the audit and standard, as well as development control committees. Is that okay? Has anybody got any objections to them changes? So we've got some consensus there. Okay, so are we okay, Chris? We don't need to go to, obviously, no vote. Are you happy with that, Chris?
Councillor Conn, in terms of the mayor's agenda, it's the next paragraph you need to read through. There are no contested vacancies.
Oh, sorry, no problem. So basically, there are no contested vacancies. Therefore, council is asked to give approval to the changes in committee, the working group and outside body places as listed in the report. An additional sheet circulated this evening, and note the changes to delegations, urgent decisions and call-in waivers as outlined in the report. Okay, and we will defer any important decisions which require groups to be consulted. That's important. And then, if that's settled, apologies for the confusion this evening, because there's been a new change of leadership, so it's made some rapid decision making is required. We now have to look at that very important decision of deputy mayor. Members of the public, Councillor Townsend early informed us he's resigned as the deputy mayor of the borough to accept the leadership of the council. Therefore, a casual vacancy has risen for the position of deputy mayor. It is proposed to appoint a deputy mayor, a temporary person who, until the next meeting of the council, will be there serving that position, the next meeting will be held in October. So it's a matter of weeks. The mayoral protocol makes no provision for a vacancy arising midterm, and as currently worded, precludes any member who is appointed to this position tonight from being offered the deputy mayorship in future years, including the year 2021 to 2022. It is therefore proposed to seek nominations from members who have already held the office of mayor, whilst officers seek to make amendments to the mayoral protocol, which will make provision for infrequently occurring circumstances such as this. Councillor Townley, you wanted to come in. I'm going to come to nominations. Is your point?
I think Councillor Lishman was before me. I was after her.
Okay.
I was indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to propose.
Let me ask you formally, please. Let me ask you formally. I'm coming to that point. You're very fast, Councillor Townsend. Could I have nominations, please? Would any member who has not already been a mayor, please remember that nomination tonight would prevent you from being nominated in the future. So, are there any nominations?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose Councillor Anne Kelly, our previous mayor, to take that post until the next council meeting.
Can I have somebody to second that?
And I would like to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, it looks like there's no other nominations. Or do we need to just all agree that we accept this moving of nomination and seconding? Yeah. Do we need to go to a vote, Chris? Chris?
Agreed.
Yes, Mr. I'll just unmute. Sorry.
We're going to a poll of this, yeah?
Not to a poll.
Assent. So basically, we take it as assent that we are.
Is there any dissent? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody against this decision of having as deputy mayor until the next meeting? Okay. Well, congratulations to Councillor Kelly to be the deputy mayor, and I have had great privilege and pleasure to serve as Councillor Kelly's deputy mayor. I hope she's as good a deputy mayor as I was to her when she was the mayor.
Yeah.
I think that concludes tonight's agenda. But I just want to, before you go, I want to just, we started this meeting off with a tribute to Councillor Tom Porter. I want to just use my position as mayor to pay tribute to one of Burnley's supermums. She's called Lindsay Sharples, and as you all know, I instigated and launched Mayor's Medal at the start of the year, and I had the difficulty of speaking to Lindsay and Gareth, her husband. It was a very moving conversation I had, and I was immensely inspired by Lindsay's heroic efforts in the difficult situation she is here at the moment, staying at Pendleside Hospice in her last chapter of her life. And Lindsay has raised, £11,300 by completing a 1 mile swim. And she has raised £7,000 for the NHS. That's £11,300 for the hospice, £7,000 for the NHS by doing a sponsored 10-kilometre walk. And before that, she raised more money with the Craven Heifer pub in Halsike for the Rosemere Centre. I was really thankful to Councillor Anne Kelly to nominate that and nominate that nomination of Lindsay Sharples, and I was proud to give her the first Mayor's Medal. So as we depart the meeting tonight, please remember Lindsay in your prayers. Please, can I just ask Councillor Kelly to just say a few words about, Lindsay Sharples, and people could say there's so many people out there making heroic efforts in these difficult times, challenging times in the borough. People who unfortunately lost their lives, but this conversation to Lindsay Sharples really moved me. It was an emotional and difficult conversation, and I will never forget that for the rest of my life. Councillor Kelly, would you like to say a few words about Lindsay?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was incredibly well received. Unfortunately, Lindsay's a young woman married with 2 very young children, and she's in the very last stages of life. She has had such wonderful treatment in the hospice and from the hospitals that she wanted to give something back. And with a lot of help, she has swum a mile. And bearing in mind, she's paralysed down one side of her body. The achievement has been absolutely amazing. It's been a big comfort as well to her husband and her children. And they were very, very proud to get the Mayor's Medal, and especially to be the first person who's got it. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. Lindsay Sharples, we are all very proud of you. You are the very best of Burnley, and we're all praying for you. And thank you very much, everybody else, for taking time out to listen to them final words tonight. And thank you for your support. And I wish you well in these difficult, challenging times. Hope you and your family stay safe. Good night and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.